Bitcoin is $105,983, and this morning it's had a very significant move to the upside. We can even see here the oscillator called it before it even happened. You can see the oscillator starts moving to the upside around about there at this price here, and then it significantly has moved to the upside. The question is, do I remain in my short positions, or is it time to flip and play the other side for a little bit? Because we've done pretty good on the short positions over the past week. We've turned some significant profits. I have closed a lot of these trades out. They are quite smaller than what they were. We've still got the Ethereum store, still got a kind of tiny Fartcoin short, still got a tiny SPX short. We've got the Solana short position and the Bitcoin short position, which is more substantially sized. But again, considering everything for Bitcoin, it's not that big of a position. Now, for Bitcoin right now, what are we expecting? Up or down? I'm going to tell you what I think in today's video. So if you don't mind, slap a like on the video. I'd really appreciate it. I am struggling with the traveling at the moment. I did 7 hours of driving yesterday, 5 hours of driving the day before, 5 hours of driving the day before that, and I'm doing it all in a supercar, so I'm kind of in bones shaken to bits. But no one ever talks about the downsides of making money, do they? It would have been easier doing that journey in a Ford Focus, let me tell you. At least the Ford Focus, you can let go of the steering wheel and it holds itself in the lane. Modern technologies, they're making us all very lazy. Anyway, $105,900. Question is, are we going to move to the upside or the downside? I think there's some good merit for kind of predicting the upside at this point in time. However, my gut tells me more down. And the reason it tells me that is, A, we are kind of heading towards this level. So this is what you've got to be a bit careful of with Bitcoin right now. Bitcoin will more than likely, and this is why I've dropped the size, because I was actually 2 million short on Bitcoin this morning. I've dropped it to 1 million short. And if you continue heading upwards, I'll just take a tiny loss on that position and re-enter up here. Now, what we're looking at is the entry up here at around $108,000. If we come back up to that level, and if we manage to break through, then there's a couple of different things that you're likely to see. The first one would be a rejection. So you come up here, you reject, you come back down, and then it's all the way back down to here. And we're going to compare this with the liquidation heat map in a second. The second, probably slightly more likely scenario would be if we get as high as this level, we'll probably come up to here. And the reason being, we have a level of resistance up here. So if we come up to that level, again, it will be back down to the outside, but this will be a much more bullish scenario where you'll want to go long off of the outside of here, around $107,000 on the way back down, because the odds are that we get quite a bullish week next week. Now, pretty much everything is very dependent on the whole Israel situation at the moment. You're not going to get any kind of clarity in the market. And that's why I'd say probably hedging to the downside is probably a smarter move than expecting more upside, because this is what a bull would be looking at right now, but not a realist. A realist would be looking at the market and going, hang on a second, what's going on in the real world? Well, the S&P 500 closed up, not yesterday because it wasn't open, but it closed up the other day, and so far today it's up 0.79%. So this is pre-market as well. So this is all in pre-market. This is not current market. If we look at current market, in fact, is it down? It's down from where it was a couple of days ago. So I guess it went down yesterday, and then either way, there's not a lot of strength in this market going on at the moment. And so from that perspective, with there not being a lot of strength, with Bitcoin kind of, again, yes, we had a pretty solid move to the upside this morning, but if I drop down now into a lower time frame and look at where we're at, we haven't sustained that move to the upside. We're likely to get a retest of down here, and then maybe more upside. But really, for me, I'm looking at the short positions. I'm taking a short position here. Reason being, if I take a short position here, I can always close on the way upwards. That one will be a pretty obvious close, take the loss. But you can get a really nice entry at this point in time, around $106,000 for the short position all the way down to 100K. Now, if we look, as I said, at the Bitcoin liquidation heat map, you can see that Bitcoin this morning has been kind of attacking this range up here. We've been liquidating a lot of people that were in early short positions on too much leverage this morning. So those people all got clipped out as Bitcoin got up to around $106,500. But that could also be a magnet down here around $103,000 later in the day if some bad news comes out regarding the Iran situation. If good news comes out, the market will pump like crazy, which is something that you've got to be on edge about. You've got to be very aware of the markets right now. But look how white this line is getting down here. Billions of dollars will get liquidated down at $103,000. And if those liquidations take place, it'll likely push the price down as low as $100,000. Now, we tend to get a very big move on Fridays. I'm pretty sure today is Friday. Yes, it is Friday. Got to check. We tend to get a pretty big move on a Friday. And that tends to come in around market close UK time, 6 to 7 p.m. So that's the time of day that I'd be really paying the most attention, especially at US Open at 2:30 p.m. UK time. And I mean, maybe it's 1:30 these days. I forget with the time zones. Anyway, you get the point. US Open at around 6 p.m. UK time, 7 p.m. UK time is when we're probably going to get the big moves in the market. Something else that I've been looking at recently is, look at this. This is optimism. That looks so cheap right now. AVAX also looks so cheap right now. And you can look through, I mean, even like Brett. And Brett doesn't do anything, but he does look cheap right now. SUI doesn't look quite as cheap, but it's certainly low in the range right now. Aptos looks dead. Just looking at all of these different things, you have to question yourself, are we about to end the Bitcoin bull market and go into an altcoin bull market and Bitcoin stagnates and goes sideways? I think that's unlikely, and that's why I think altcoins are unlikely to come back in the next couple of months. I could be wrong on that, and I kind of hope I am wrong because I hold a lot of altcoins. But overall, I look at stuff like this and I go, if you're a long-term investor, surely it makes sense to buy some of these things. Like Optimism is so cheap. It used to be $5 a coin in April 2024. 1 year later, and it's 50 cents a coin. Surely it makes sense to buy a little bit of it. So I am very conflicted right now as to whether holding short is the correct decision. But equally, I still believe that the trend is your friend. The trend is downwards. Wait until the trend is broken. It's a really difficult situation to kind of plot it out and predict. But basically, we're back in a bull market above $108,000 Bitcoin, and we are back in a bear market below $105,000 Bitcoin, and everything else in between in this range here means absolutely diddly squat, and it's very difficult to predict. However, if we do start moving to the upside, try not to be in a short position, because you might get clipped out of it. Now, if you look at today's cryptocurrency news, I wanted to first of all bring up this, which is Trump has cut his stake in World Liberty Financial by 20%. Now, that's a pretty significant cut. And also, I want to point out, World Liberty Financial for Trump is nothing more than a cash cow. If you look at what is actually cashed out of it, Trump has personally reported more than $57 million in income from the venture as of June, based on public filings. Now, do you think that Trump has actually returned $57 million worth of value to the people that have invested in this? No, of course he's not. No, you don't return value. You just take money out of the businesses. That's how people get rich. And you can see the same with Trump coin. He sniped Trump coin, dumps Trump coin. Does this, dumps this. It's always the same thing, which is why you can't trust this man and what he says about cryptocurrencies. He flips on a switch. So just be careful of taking things too seriously, what Trump says. A terrible spiral of escalation, the world bracing for intensifying of everything that's going on in the Middle East. Again, more intensifying. They're going to destabilize the regime with intensified airstrikes. And so none of that's good news. And then we do have something that I can actually talk about in a bit more detail, which is Berkshire Hathaway's share price is dropping double digits as the Buffett premium is disappearing. And if we're to go over and look at that, it's kind of the first time that we've seen since, basically kind of pandemic ending time, that the Berkshire stock has been dropping. Which is pretty interesting to see. Berkshire have got a big cash position at the moment. So being that Berkshire have got a big cash position, that could potentially be why the stock is dropping, because they're not bringing value back to their investors and the Buffett premium is disappearing on the stock. Now, if you look at this stock over years, it could be an amazing short position, because this has gone from being in 1996, $22 a share to being $485 a share just a few years later on. 25 years, 30 years later on. Either way, interesting times for Berkshire stock and Berkshire holders. I'm not one of those people, so it doesn't matter that much to me. But I do think it's important to pay attention to what's going on in the traditional markets, especially because we're trying to predict what's going on with this mess that I've been drawing on the screen here. When it comes to Ethereum, again, very similar story on Ethereum at the moment, being that you've got resistance, and actually we broke a resistance this morning, but I fear that this is a trap more than anything. We've seen it a bunch of times where we'll come up, we'll just break resistance. If we were to plot this differently and go with something like that, you could plot this very similar and say, look, we broke above it and then we immediately got rejected. I fear a similar situation with this, which is why I'm cautious about dumping in loads of money into long positions right now. Naturally, if the market does look like it's going to take a turn, I will do that. But for now, no, I don't think it's worth the risk, to be honest, to be deploying heavily into those things. So when it comes to my current open trades, the ETH position, I'll continue to hold for a while. The entry is at 2616, current price of 2550. So we've got some margin of error on that. In terms of the Bitcoin trade, there isn't zero margin of error on this, which means that if I am wrong on it, I will have to take the loss. And the point of which we have to take the loss is the breaking of the high here. I'll be closing at least 50% of the trade. And then if it continues going upwards, I'll close another 50%. And then I will average in at the top of the price and short it again, in the hope that we get rejected from that resistance level that I pointed out earlier, around $108,000, which would be this range here. The peak of the range around $109,000, but let's be realistic. Can that hit during all of this turbulence? It's difficult to say, but I think it's somewhat unlikely. So overall, again, not the world's most bullish video, but I do think there is some merit to buying good coins. My concern is, so if we just think about optimism for a second, it's a nice idea. It just has no users, but it is listed on Binance. So if the market comes back, the price will come back. And it'll come back very aggressively, because they always do. They always come back like 90 cents up to $3 in just a few days. If the market comes back, it'll just straight line it. I just don't think we're going to get the straight line soon. I get the feeling we've got 2 or 3 weeks more downside on this to come. Maybe a new low, maybe around 30 or 40 cents, and then the time will be to buy. Now, we could apply the same logic to pretty much anything in crypto right now, but these, to me, look like failed concepts, apart from Sui. Sui's doing pretty well. But a lot of things out there look like failed concepts. Aerodrome's been doing really well recently, but that's because of base. And I would suggest that actually shorting Aerodrome right now is not a bad idea. I'm not saying you should do that, but I don't think it's a bad idea, because the reason this has been pumping is because of the Coinbase news that's been dropping recently. What was the Coinbase news? Coinbase are doing something with Circle, and Circle is their thing, and USDC and stablecoin regulation, whatever. Aerodrome's been doing well. So I don't know if it's the right time to be shorting this, but I would be optimistic about holding a short position here. If you are interested in trading, check out BYBIT. You'll find a link for it in today's video description, as well as a link for Bluefin for people that can't use BYBIT. And yeah, I currently am only $2 million worth of volume away from renewing my VIP4 status. And that's pretty good news, because that means I get to keep the 6% cash back on the BYBIT card. Which means that 6% of all the money that I spend on the card gets returned to me, meaning that I have a 6% discount on everything that I purchase, which is amazing, because I also pay for it in crypto, which is fantastic, because I make money in crypto and I make all my money in crypto. So the fact that I can spend crypto in the shops is amazing. So check out BYBIT, check out Bluefin. If you're in the UK, US, or Europe, Bluefin is the one for you. If you're outside of those zones, BYBIT is the one for you. Check them both out. Link in today's video description, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.